Hey there! We've been super busy on the farm the last couple months trying to get everything ready for winter, and we finally got all the beds built. If you guys saw the last video, really excited that that's all been done. But what I want to show you now is a little bit of an update on the farm, just because we've kind of finished building it out for the most part. We got a bunch of little projects, so I'll keep you guys updated on as we go through. But I have a lot of food growing right now, and it's great. Starting to get that harvesting going and getting out to restaurants and all that stuff. So a little bit of an update today and show you some of the things we're working on. All right, we're in tunnel 1 here, just to show you what's going on in this tunnel. I'm only growing 4 crops right now, and a lot of people ask me about what crops I'm growing, and so it's pretty easy. I'm growing lettuce, carrots, beets, and kale. So the lettuce, which you guys see on either side of me here, and over in the back, there's 2 more beds over there. This is all the Salanova Foundation mix from Johnny's. I've been growing this all year. It's a mixture of 4 varieties. It's a great lettuce for restaurants. It looks awesome. The chefs absolutely love it. It looks fancy, but it's like very versatile. They can use it in a salad, they can use it on sandwiches. Our family likes eating it too, so that's great. The carrots, I'm just growing mokum now. They've been pretty successful for me, and getting decent sized carrots, and they've been pretty consistent. You can see how well these beds are. They're nice and filled out, and yeah, getting a lot of carrots out of here. And in the back over there, we got red Russian kale. So I got a couple beds of that going. You guys know I love that. I've grown plenty of that in the past, and you can just keep harvesting it and harvesting it pretty much all winter, and it'll just keep growing. And good yields, and the flavor's unbelievable. I know red Russian kale is one of those varieties that isn't really available in a lot of situations or a lot of places, and so it's kind of like a fancier kale. Most people are used to the regular curly kale and stuff that they get, so it's kind of a nice crop to offer, even though it's like no different than growing any of the other kinds of kale. For the most part, it's pretty easy. So yeah, those are the main crops. I'm also growing beets, so I'll go show you tunnel 2. Now we're in tunnel 2, and over here we got a bed of beets that are been harvesting out of for a while, and these are kind of late summer beets. They don't look great. We got some red Russian kale, carrots, and more carrots over here. And in the back, we got lettuce, beets, kale, and lettuce. Again, more of the same. But yeah, having successions obviously is very important. And at this time of year, we're in early December. You know, the light levels are down, but we're still getting some nice warm days. We're getting some good growth. It is slow, but that's the kind of thing you expect with winter growing. It's slow and steady, and you got to plan way ahead. So this is all loaded up, and we'll be getting yields out of this moving forwards. Here we are in tunnel 3, and if you've been following along, you know this is the tunnel that we just recently built, and just recently built the beds in. So we built those a little bit longer ago, but these 4 beds right here, we built these last week, and you can see that these 3 are not planted yet, and that's completely my fault because because the schedule got pushed back a few weeks. All the starts that I had ready for this, which were ready weeks ago, they didn't make it, and so they just, they were ready to go, and there was nowhere to put them. So I got to start some more starts for this, and we're a little bit behind. I would sow some carrots in here just to get something growing. But as I said in the last video, the soil underneath these beds is super compacted, and I know that the carrots won't do well. So you got to think about what you're growing and what your soil looks like, because even with these deep compost mulch lasagna beds, you can't just plant whatever you want on them. So I'll often do a round or 2 or a couple rounds of shallow rooted crops just to get the biology going, and with the broad forking on each bed flip will eventually loosen up the soil, and you could plant whatever you want. But for here, like, I'm going to be planting probably mostly lettuce, maybe a bed of beets in here, and we should be pretty good. In the back, we got the same, as I said, I'm only growing 4 things. We got kale, lettuce, beets, and kale. And so as you can see, there's a lot of lettuce growing, which is great and I'm going to plant a lot more lettuce because that's a crop that I sell really well. The restaurants really do like it, and it's very, very profitable. So it's important to plan your successions and have stuff well in advance. And with winter farming, things grow so slowly that, like, whatever I plant in here is probably not going to be harvestable till maybe like March, which is crazy to think about, but that's why I built this 3rd tunnel, is to have those crops much later in the season. Once we hit April here and afterwards, things start growing really quickly, and so you'll have a huge flush of produce coming out of the ground, and you'll be planting and harvesting as fast as you can. But in the wintertime, it's pretty chill, but you got to get everything in the ground as soon as possible, and we're definitely a few weeks behind here, but we'll be able to plant stuff, and it should be able to grow all winter. Now this is the area down below that 3rd tunnel, and this is where we're going to have a long hedgerow, which we built, and I didn't get to film it because the day we built this, it was raining all day, and I didn't film it. But basically, we built this bed out of what we had on hand. So we did layers of pretty much everything we had, which was leaves, some leftover compost from like January that I had purchased, some homemade compost that we had here, and then we also used some wood chips on top. So again, this is going to be a beneficial hedgerow. I think we're going to put blueberries in here and a bunch of other cool plants to host beneficial insects and pollinators and stuff, and also create more of a buffer from the grassy area, because you guys know I don't like mowing and the grass does get pretty tall sometimes, and I was getting grass seeds blowing into the tunnels because the grass was pretty close to the tunnels, and then getting weeds growing in the tunnels, which is just silly that where the weeds are just coming in from the grass. So this will give a little bit more of a buffer, and it's always important to increase diversity. So that's the goal here. This is sort of a compost in place in some ways because we have all those layers, but we're just keeping it covered for the time being. And a lot of organic material we put in here, and we're going to try to work with the soil that's here a little bit too. But this should be great. This should be a great start, and there's a lot of room here for experimentation. But I just want to let you know that this did get built, and this is still in the works. But as I said, like, things have been pushed back a few weeks, so this was low priority. But we did get this bed built at least, and it's starting to break down and turn into soil. So this will be very, very cool. Getting some more beet seeds started out here, and yeah, it seems weird starting seeds this time of year, but kind of have to do it to keep the beds full and get that new tunnel all planted out. And also there'll be a few beds coming out in a couple weeks, carrots and beets, so those got to get replanted. And I just want to update you on a couple things while I'm doing this. First thing is, people ask me all the time about soil blocks and if I still use them, and absolutely. I'm fully committed to this system, and after a full season now, I don't know what else I would do. I think it's absolutely incredible. I've never seen healthier starts. There's very little transplant shock, and after you do it for a while, the time that it takes to build them is very minimal, and you get pretty fast at it. And so I've really been enjoying them. I think it's a really cool process, and I really like the results that I'm getting from it. So one thing that I really recommend is a good seed starting mix, a good potting mix. This video is not sponsored at all. It has been sponsored by Till Soil, which is a great soil company out in Ohio, but I don't use a lot of potting mix, and I can't get it locally, so it'd be hard for me to source that unless I bought a lot of it at once. So I've been using Coast of Maine, their seed starter mix, which I get from my local store, Country Farm and Home, and it's been great. I've used other products too, but it's been fine. But a good spend money on good potting mix, I think that's a really crucial part of getting good starts, and also just getting the consistency right for soil blocks, I think, is really important too. But that stuff's been great. Another thing that's important to make it quick is the 35 block stand-up soil blocker, and I really recommend this. I'll leave a link down below for this. If you want to know more details about soil blocks, I made a whole video about that. I'll leave that up here and down below for you guys to check out. So, on a couple things I want to talk about with beets. I know I said I'd make a full video, but I might as well just give you some details if you're interested. So I transplant them. I gave up on direct seeding. You can direct seed beets. I just, with limited bed space, I want to make sure everything's really maximized. And so I want to make sure that I'm getting the best yields and best growth and all that stuff. And I found that transplanting works really well. So the spacing works out to be, I use the 3x gritter. So it's 3 rows. Usually it's 10 inches apart, but I space them every in between each one as well, so 3 rows at 5 inches apart. So it's a lot of transplants, and for me, I don't even remember how many it is, but I know it's 3 2/3 trays, and if I do that, I'm good for a bed. So that's what I've been doing. And so if you don't know, if you've ever grown beets before, each seed is actually multiple seeds, and so you often get multiple seedlings in each start. And so I found in my, what I've been doing is that if it's more than 2, I'll thin it. But if it's 2 in each plug, I'll let that go. I find that if it's 3 in each plug, they won't size up well. And so I'll just thin that at the time of planting. So as I have it in my hand, I'll just look at it and I'll just pull it out there. But otherwise, I don't do any other thinning. It's another benefit of transplanting. You just get a really even stand, exactly what you're looking for. In terms of variety, I've been using Red Ace which is like the boring red beet that probably you've grown before, but it does really well, and you know, most people they want a red beet, so it works out fine. There's also other options out there, and as a, you know, with my limited bed selection or bed space, I really just limit it to the crops that do well and keep my offerings pretty simple, because I can't have too many things being offered with only, you know, now I have 24 beds. For a while it was only 16. So that's kind of it with beets. You want to make sure you get them out as soon as they're ready. If they're in the nursery too long, then they will tend to either not do well and don't transplant well, so make sure you get the timing on that pretty good. Also, this nursery has been incredible. As if you guys watched that video I did with Jesse, and he sort of walked around and gave a tour of my farm a couple weeks ago. This nursery has been an absolute luxury. This comes from my friends at Rimmel, and this is a custom greenhouse. This is the Bobcat. It's a 16 by 48 usually, but they made me a 16 by 24, and then people always ask me, so that's what this is. It's been awesome. It's really warm in here in the cooler days. It heats up fast because I have a double poly layer on the top, and I always see lizards running around here, so you know it's a happy place for them too. But otherwise, it's been great. There's a ton of room in here. I can also do all my starts, and I'm just starting out as lettuce and beets right now. I'm gonna get back to this and make sure I get all this work done today. Well, it's always important to close up the tunnels before it gets dark. If you can catch a little bit of sunlight to heat up the tunnels and the soil before it completely cools off, the temperature inside the tunnels will stay a lot warmer. And this time of year, as we get closer to winter and further into winter, is really important to try to trap as much heat in there as possible. In terms of weather, we've had a bunch of cold nights down in, you know, below freezing, and we generally don't get super cold here, but in the wintertime, most nights do get below freezing, but there's very few days where it doesn't go above freezing during the day. So pretty mild here, great conditions for growing these kinds of crops, but it's in the pattern now to just be opening and closing tunnels pretty regularly. And make sure, if you're growing in tunnels any time of the year, but especially in the winter time, make sure you're opening the tunnels even when it's not super warm outside, because you need to get that humidity out and get that air exchange as well is super important. So usually, I don't know, a couple hours before sundown, I'll go and make sure I close up all the tunnels. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, now that we got the beds finally all built, now we can focus on some of the other projects, which is fantastic. We've been putting some of this stuff off for a while, but obviously putting the priority on getting the beds built. That way we can get food in the ground as soon as possible. And so that's all done. So now one of the projects that we had to do today was put down the landscape fabric in between tunnels 2 and 3. This is the same strategy we have going on between 1 and 2 and also above number 1. And the main reason for this, there's a couple reasons. One is to keep the ground covered, because everything's going to grow here if we don't keep it covered, and so the landscape fabric will keep down the weed growth significantly. And also, it's really important to manage your drainage and the water flow on your farm, and I've said this plenty of times, especially important on this farm because we get heavy rainfalls and being on the slope. But any farm, we got to think about where the water is going to go. And right here, all the water comes off these 2 tunnels, hits the ditch, and goes down and away. And this is pitched both downhill this way and downhill that way, so the water will just get carried away. Now, I know some people have said, like, why don't you mulch this or put, you know, with wood chips or leaves or whatever. Well, the thing is, it rains so hard here sometimes, it carries material downhill. So by having this in place, it'll stay in place and the water will move downhill and away very easily. So it's not a perfect solution, but it does work pretty well. This is a 4-foot wide piece of landscape fabric, and the tunnels are 3.5 feet apart, and they're just landscape stapled in along the sides. And I said it's not perfect, but it's working pretty well. So glad to have this one done, and we'll work on the one below tunnel 3 when we address the hedgerow and that whole area down there. There's a little bit more drainage work we have to do over there, but really happy to have this squared away. All right, well, that wraps up for today. And as I said before, I'm really excited to start chipping away at some of these projects that have been pushed back now that we got the beds finished. And I got a lot of other cool projects coming up, and winter growing and harvesting and all that. I'm going to share all that stuff with you guys. And as usual, I will leave videos down below, related videos to the topics I mentioned today. I want to try to be as helpful as possible for you guys learning how to grow and get better at what you're doing. And also, if you're ever looking for specific information, if you go to this YouTube channel's page, there's a search bar up there. You can search for specific things. I recommend that if you're looking for something in particular, that you give that a shot, and hopefully you'll find what you're looking for. Other than all the stuff on the farm here, I have been super busy with my other YouTube channel as well, which I've mentioned before, but it's about videography, filmmaking, and content creation. I have discussions with other content creators. If you're interested in that kind of stuff or want to kind of see behind the scenes of how I run this channel and all that kind of stuff, go check it out. I'll leave a link down below. It'd be greatly appreciated if you could do that. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one.